everyone. This is Will Eisner from Awareness Incorporated, and welcome to our webinar for Wednesday, February 9th, 2011. We're very excited to have everybody with us today. We've got a really cool presentation today entitled KNARF Busting, How to Turn Social Media Skeptics into Believers, presented by John Nielsen, the co-founder of RUFrank.com, and I'll be telling you a little bit about John in a minute. Before we get started, I just want to encourage everybody, if you have any questions or comments, you can tweet them to us with hashtag #PoundAwarenessInc on Twitter, or you can contact us via the WebEx chat. So let's introduce our speaker for today. John, can you hear me first of all, and are you able to just say hello and test your audio?
I'm good. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining.
Hi, John. So most of you who are on this call probably have heard of John Nielsen. He's the co-founder of RUFrank.com, and he's a veteran of the marketing world, having done marketing for over 20 years for some big names like PepsiCo and American Express and United Healthcare. At RUFrank.com, John works to do a couple different activities, which he'll probably mention to you. They do external-facing social marketing campaigns, internal-facing campaigns for things like employees to get engagement, and they have a specialty in dislodging the kind of resistance that you might find in organizations to social media and social marketing, which is related to his presentation today about KNARF busting and being frank. I am Will Eisner, one of your hosts for today, and I'm here at Awareness with my colleague Sal Gilberto. Hey, Sal.
Hey, everyone.
We will be here in the background checking your questions on Twitter and responding to you in the WebEx chat, and we'll be very happy to answer all your questions. We like to keep these presentations interactive, and we'll have time for questions at the end. So I want to take a few minutes now to kind of walk you through a little bit of the mechanics of this presentation and then tell you just a little bit about awareness, and then we'll get on to John's presentation about KNARF busting. You should all be seeing my slides progressing, by the way. You should now see a slide that says Got Questions. If you don't see that slide, please contact our WebEx assist producer, Gerald, via the WebEx chat. He can help you. Basically, the best way to contact us is to tweet on Twitter with #PoundAwarenessInc as the hashtag. You can also, as I mentioned, contact us via the WebEx chat. If you have any technical issues, please contact Gerald via the WebEx chat. Gerald is an expert in WebEx. We are not experts in WebEx. We're users of WebEx. He'll be happy to answer any questions that you have about audio or video or any of those topics. An additional note, we'll be making a recording of this presentation available afterwards. So if you have any problems or you drop out or anything like that, we'll send you a follow-up email with that information, so you can always review the content afterwards. And finally, well, not finally, in terms of the mechanics, there will be a prize. John is going to be giving away a KNARF Buster 6-pack, which he's going to tell you about, and you're going to need to tweet a question or a KNARFy statement, and John's going to tell you about that. Now, before we hand it off to John, I just want to spend literally a couple minutes telling you about who we are at Awareness. A lot of people come to our webinars, and they say, well, okay, that's great that you do these webinars, but who are you? Well, Awareness is a software company that makes tools for marketers, and we've been doing this for 10 years. Our premier offering is called the Awareness Social Marketing Hub, and it's a tool that helps marketers publish content to social channels, publish, manage, measure, and engage. I'm going to tell you about it in just a minute. We produce software that's used by some of the biggest brands in the world, and we also partner with some of the biggest agencies in the world to deliver that software. We also have additions and offerings for small and medium-sized businesses. We at Awareness talk to a lot of different companies that are in different stages of social media challenges. And here's what we're hearing in the market. People say that they're overwhelmed. There's so many channels. There's so much content. There's too many passwords to manage. People tell us that they're having trouble proving the ROI. They want to show the value of the work that they're doing, and they don't know always how to report on that so easily. People feel like there's a lack of control. They don't know who has access to their social channels. They're in a large organization. There might be social channels run by small groups that they don't have control of. And finally, if you're having trouble managing everything, you feel like you don't have control, and you're having trouble measuring your work, it's very hard to be strategic. These problems are common to a lot of different kinds of organizations, both small and large. It was in response to these kind of problems that we created the Awareness Social Marketing Hub, which is a web-based tool that helps marketers publish, manage, measure, and engage to social channels, to some of the most important social channels out there right now, like Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Flickr. Basically, whereas before, if you wanted to publish to a bunch of channels, you have to log in a whole bunch of different places. You can do it in one place with the Hub. If you want to manage control and access and permissioning and workflow to all your social channels, you used to have to do that in a bunch of places. You can centralize that with the Hub. If you want to get a measurement of how you're doing with social marketing in terms of real-world, traditional online marketing metrics, instead of having to log in all these different places and download data every day, the Hub gives you a dynamic view of that. And finally, the Hub gives you a console where you can interact and engage with the users who are talking about your brand as a team and with a coherent and cohesive voice. So basically, the Hub helps you gain control of your social marketing, centralize all of your efforts, evolve from being reactive to being strategic and setting out your plan, and it really helps you measure your success with social marketing. We're really excited about the Social Marketing Hub here. We released it at the beginning of last year. We've been getting a lot of great feedback about it, and we'd love to show it to you. So we do a demo of this every 2 weeks. There'll be another demo that Sal's going to be leading next Wednesday, the 16th. You can sign up for it at tinyurl.com/hubdemo, or you can contact Sal directly. That's his email address, salgilberto@awarenessnetworks.com, or you can tweet to him on Twitter, or you can go to our website, awarenessnetworks.com, and click on Request a Demo. We will be very happy to talk to you about the Hub and answer any questions that you have. And then we hope that you'll take a moment to take a look at it and join us for our demo next Wednesday. So with that said, I'm going to hand off in a moment to John. John's going to take you through all about KNARF busting, and then with about 10 minutes left, we're going to stop and we're going to take your questions. So those questions, you should tweet those to Pound Awareness Inc. We'll put them in the WebEx chat, and then we'll have John answer some of your questions at the end of the webinar. And with that, I'm going to hand off to John. I'm going to make you the presenter now. So let's see here. Let me switch to your presentation. Great. So John, you should be seeing the KNARF busting presentation?
Not yet.
Not yet. Hold on a second. Oh, hold on. Let me just move you over there. Make sure to click on the tab up top that says Frank for Awareness.
All right, perfect. Ready to go.
There we go. I think we're all set.
All right, thanks, Will. Appreciate the intro. And thanks to everybody for joining today. We are going to have a little fun. We're going KNARF busting today. How to turn social media skeptics into believers. And as Will talked a little bit about my background, Frank's background, we've been at this for about 5 years, and me personally for about 8 years with social media, and we've met a lot of different folks at a lot of different levels and trying to accomplish a lot of different things with social media. And then there are those people kind of in front of that, ahead of that we call KNARFs, who just can't quite get there yet and have some barriers in the way of leveraging all the new social media tools and strategies and all that good stuff, and actually might be in the way of some of your own initiatives and dreams and campaigns that you're trying to launch. So we're going to have fun with that today and try to give you some tips and insights and tools, including a free KNARF Buster 6-pack that we've created that includes a favorite mix of Frank products to help you get through to your KNARFs. Elissa's not included. That's one of my business partners demonstrating the KNARF Buster itself up there. There's one of those. You get a Frank translator. There's a couple Frank mugs, of course, and some new Frank posters included in this. And of course, if you have an immediate KNARF emergency, you can feel free to order from the Frank store right now and get some of these things going for you immediately. So, as Will said, share those through Twitter, your KNARF statements, and we'll get to that later on. All right. But let's start, before we get into KNARFs, let's start with you. Are you Frank? I mean, clearly, the whole social media movement needs to be championed by people who stand for the values of social media in the 2.0 world. It all begins with each of us as social media evangelists who are on the call today, really. And this is sort of a mirror for us to check who we are in this process. We'll be talking about everybody around us and some very frustrating KNARFs today, but we need to do this check, too, to make sure that we're being frank, real, honest, authentic, transparent, inviting, collaborative, trusting, and enrich regular conversation with our best customers, coworkers, and especially ourselves. What we'll be talking about today is actually not a lot of ROI, not a lot of business insights or strategies, but really getting down into more of the human barriers and trying to address those so that we can dislodge some of the KNARF behavior at a deeper level, because that's what we believe tends to be the most authentic, if you will, a barrier to success with who we're talking about as KNARFs. Now, the definition of the day, the KNARF. Okay, here's an opportunity to vent a little bit. We don't go with a silent K. We go with a hard K. KNARF. Say it out loud. Go ahead. Some of these KNARFs can really be frustrating and get in our way of the success that started to talk about already. And you'll see the definition on the left. People who are rigid, narrow-minded, locked in, controlling, protective, timid, afraid, clamped down. They're in their own way, your way, and in the way of your brand's future success, inside and outside of organizations. Of course, we have a handy acronym to make it all easy to remember. Know-it-all, narrow-minded, authenticity-deprived, resistant, fraidy cats. And worst of all, these folks typically don't even know it. There's very little or no self-awareness of the barriers that they're creating in their own lives and obviously with people all around them with their attitudes and KNARFy behavior. So this is a bit of a challenge because KNARFs are everywhere. They look like you and I, but they have these different kinds of attitudes and views on life as summarized in some of these as stats and quotes. I think at the core of a KNARF's fear is really this notion that they will become obsolete. Personally, as a marketing director getting into social media about 8-9 years ago, as I started to realize the power and the wisdom of the crowds and so on and so forth, it challenged my very being of how I was going to work, how I was going to get the work done, and with whom I was going to get the work done. And there's a big transformation in there for people to understand. And it's not about becoming obsolete, obviously. It's really a business reinvention that's required, and even more deeply, a personal reinvention. So that's a great quote to just think about and get inside the heads of KNARFs a little bit. This came from the statistic. Average emotional intelligence of today's corporate leaders is about 90 on a scale of 150. And I know that we have a couple folks from the TMG leadership group on the call today. I wish I could get their thoughts on this as psychologists working in the corporate arena. Our understanding of this is that emotional intelligence is really the predictor, apparently, of up to about 45% of a person's success in career and relationship and in life, as opposed to the old IQ measure, which is really, around intellectual knowledge and ability. The problem is our business world values IQ more than EQ, and the interesting thing about all of this is that EQ represents that more human, that more social, that more interconnected ability to work with people within organizations, of course, and that extends to customers and to clients and to people outside of the organization. And people who have higher emotional intelligence rankings tend to be able to do that more easily, more openly, and with more passion. It's an interesting, fascinating thing that we're exploring here, to be able to quantify KNARF. And so this starts to get into, some of those opportunities, and might be something for you to do a little bit more reading and exploring about. Clearly, the last statistic speaks to executives, yes, another word for KNARFs, who clearly just have so many different kinds of pressures coming at them, from the top, from the bottom, working faster with less resources and time and all that good stuff. and so they're dealing with a lot of conflicting priorities, and social media doesn't often show up on that list. So it's just something perhaps obvious, but something to keep in mind to be able to empathize with where a lot of KNARFs are and help them see the way at a very personal level what the opportunity and promise of implementing and leveraging more social media is. Because if you don't, KNARFs can be social media saboteurs. And I think that probably everybody can identify maybe living this very moment in their office with the door closed, perhaps some of these experiences with KNARFs in their lives, folks who cling to the status quo, they're playing small, they're staying skeptical. They're really insulated by this delusion of success. KNARFs tend to be people in upper management who have got there for very good reasons, but as we'll point to a book later on in the presentation, the title of which is What Got You Here Won't Get You There, KNARFs are often caught in that place of transition and actually looking for ways through and need allies, hopefully like many folks on the call today, to help them move through the business and personal reinvention that we're talking about. The other sabotaging behavior is kind of outlined here, including, to be quite frank about it, they're really living in a very kind of scared, shitless kind of state because of all these pressures as leaders within their organizations and looking for ways through, but often, as I said earlier, not even being aware of some of the behaviors, some of the resistances that are in the way of leveraging more of the technology as we're talking about it today. So the point here really is that we love KNARFs. KNARFs are obviously frequently the decision makers, senior executives who in different types of meetings tend to say the most nauseating things that can get in the way of momentum, experiments, any little sort of bite-sized next steps with social media. So here are some of the favorites that we've heard recently. I'm too busy for self-expression. We'll deal with that one directly in a second. There's lots of comments here about it's for teenagers, it's for other people, folks brushing off social media because they haven't found, relevant ways to leverage the business value of the new technology yet. So it's throwing out the baby and the bathwater sort of thing. This whole notion of our industry is too regulated. We can't afford it. I don't want my employees talking to customers, usually a big a symbol of dysfunction within the organization, misalignment within the organization. The old saw about it doesn't work for B2B, don't have anything unique to say. That's often a brand problem. This one we'll deal with today. We've actually heard folks say, I would prefer a pay cut rather than talk to more people at work. We all have those days when it's a leader, again, in the way of some of the opportunity with social media that can be a huge impediment. And, of course, I don't know where to start. It's kind of simple, but can also be used as an excuse to stay stuck. So, those are some of the most nauseating excuses we've ever heard KNARF say. Of course, you guys probably have a ton as well. We'd love to hear the best statements, the most nauseating statements. Please send those in. Love to answer some of the questions about those later on, and the best one is selected by Will and Sal. We'll get the KNARF Buster 6-pack that'll hopefully help with your success in conversations with KNARFs.
Yep, and John, just everyone make sure to tweet those to Pound Awareness Inc. That's where we'll be looking for them.
Thank you, Will. All right, let's get into it. I'm too busy for self-expression. Let's take on this KNARFy statement. Starting here because it hits close to home. I've actually heard myself saying this a lot. It's kind of a subset of this notion of I've got too many other more pressing things to do. So we want to take this on with KNARF Buster number 1, dip the toe with slow social media integration. What this is really all about is getting social media in the flow of what KNARFs are already doing. So when you look on the left, in the bottom right, left-hand corner, you'll see where KNARFs are. They're, resistant to social media, so they're not really doing anything or letting a lot of other people do anything around them. They're focused and consumed and really busy with, in our context today, marketing internal and external offline events. So there's a list of some of the things that they may be working on currently. And the opportunity here that we talk about often is getting the social media strategies, tactics, experiments in the flow of what KNARFs are already doing. That can be a real KNARF killer. So, Altimeter talks about 2011. You should look up this study, the report actually, it's a forecast on 2011, being the year of social media integration. And so if we look at the offline events, obviously there's all kinds of different social media opportunities to spike the success, during, and post events, some of which are listed here. And we just threw out a couple to get the discussion going. Clearly, UGC being user-generated content outreach. Polling people before a big town hall meeting. What are they thinking? What's on their mind? That can really help KNARF stand in front of a group of 100, 200 people and be really tapped into, what the crowd is thinking at a particular event or sales meeting or all that kind of stuff. Very simple, very powerful, potentially, way to get some social media integration and some things tried. Clearly, social webinars. Actually, we'll talk more about a success story with one of our clients in the B2B niche market about integrating some social webinars with things that they were already doing. Mobile video tagging, the QR tags that are being put on printed materials. Easy way to start getting into, traditional marketing and amping that with some social media technology and functionality that can open up new possibilities. Practice the science of PowerPoint retweeting. There's all kinds of different theories and strategies out there to get presentations that people are already doing at sales events and conferences and all those kinds of good things retweeted, repurposed. Find that, help your KNARF understand that, embed that in the presentation, and obviously show some of the results afterwards. Monitor and mapping conversations. We know about how powerful that can be. And, micro trade show campaigns. Again, things that are already going on. How do you spike the success and drive traffic to different trade show events? That one I pick on a little bit because trade shows are so contentious these days about whether to go or not. Are we going to meet qualified prospects there or not? If you can prove some success utilizing a neat little mix of social media tactics to amp the success of a trade show, you'll get some attention from KNARF. And hopefully that'll lead to bigger, better things. So, that was number one. This is another KNARF-y statement that we hear quite frequently, and as I say, maybe some folks are on the line from heavily regulated industries. And we often hear KNARF say, hell no, our industry is way too regulated for social media. Well, that may be true, and to the degree you take that on directly, that can be a real challenge, and you probably actually will lose. So, KNARF Buster number 2 is don't fix problems, find solutions. Down below is one of our favorite quotes about social media by John Wooden. Don't let what you can't do interfere what you can do with what you can do, So when we look at the box on the left, typical financial industry barriers, we often hear folks within the organization talking about the no-way game-stopper type barriers, the rules, regulations, compliance, all the red tape within financial industry. All of it has to be archived. Attorneys are freaked out about discoverable information and all that ugly stuff. What we're proposing here is don't take that on directly. Find different kinds of solutions and get people going, move the conversation to a whole different place with social media and reframe it in a way that ING did with their campaign all about We the Savers. I don't know if people have seen this, but we love this because they changed the conversation. They created a manifesto, our Declaration of Financial Independence, and they put out a lot of really good content, educational information around a vibe and a movement and a passion to start saving again. And, of course, ING has all the ING Direct, in this case, has all the products and services to help with that. But they don't talk about that. They talk about a whole bunch of other things that are actually quite clear from the regulators and the KNARFs who are trying to shut down the type of social media activities that they perceive would happen if marketing got their way with social media. My wife is in the financial services industry, and so she kind of helped me with this slide, and it's an ongoing debate, but we really believe that by changing the context and reframing it and looking for solutions and brand new approaches, even within heavily regulated industries, you can bust through a KNARF-y attitude. Well, this one is obviously pretty popular. We just can't afford social media. It's kind of low-hanging fruit for us in the world of KNARF busting, because everybody in this day and age has less time, less money, and less resources, especially KNARFs, who are often in charge of a lot of these types of initiatives and teams and maybe even departments and divisions. So to the degree you can start saying and proving and implementing that more social can actually help with those issues, there's openings there. And we did this successfully with a long-running client of ours, Burns Engineering. I mentioned them earlier, in a very deep niche-oriented B2B fashion. B2B niche-oriented industry. And so they had less time, money, and resources, and really the only way through for them was to refresh the brand and, as you see on the right, tap into open sources and resources of collective intelligence and communities. And we often talk to KNARFs about, you know what, you have loyalists, you have fans, you have people who love what you do and how you do it. You may be in a KNARF-y position right now, but if you can open up to that community, they often have more to say about your possibilities than you do. And that we talk about inside the organization and outside of the organization. Clearly, this is a strategy of tapping into the wisdom of the crowd. That can be employees, that can be people in your value chain, and that can clearly be customers and clients on the outside, with a whole bunch of different types of tactics. And when we start to unleash a lot of different tactics, then we talk about managing your swirl. People start, complaining, especially KNARFs, about, oh, my head hurts. I have too many things going on. I don't know what's being effective, what's not, how it's all contributing, how it's all integrated, and all that stuff. And they get a lot of pain about that. So obviously it's our job to manage that swirl and pick the right amount of social media tactics to implement, again, probably in a smaller amount at the outset, to get some proof and some traction going with KNARF first. And Jim Burns, the president of this company, talked about inviting the people within our walls to participate, so it was really authentic. And their campaign, you can go check this out, burnsengineering.com. This campaign resulted in about 20% increase in site visitors, an average of 100 registrations for the webinars that they're doing here. Burns is as I said, in this deep B2B niche, and they're in the temperature measurement space. And so there's a handful of geeks who love what they do, and Burns is uniquely qualified to serve those needs. So they have these webinars, and it's very geek to geek, and they're averaging about 100 registrations and attendees per webinar. And overall, since we've been running this campaign, it's led to about a 30% increase in new business products. New business prospects. So again, leveraging time, money, less time, money, and resources, and more social is working for Burns. And the other thing, I'm not sure this is great for our business model, but obviously the more successful Burns becomes on their own with their social media efforts being produced by usually their staff and their employees and their customers and clients, the less dependence they have on Frank. So to be honest, their success has increased, our involvement has decreased over the last about 4 years that we've been working for them, and that can be music to the ears of KNARFs looking for ROI on a longer-term basis. This is one of the KNARF-y statements that keeps me up at night. As I said earlier, we clearly all have our moments, but we've heard a leader talk about this before. I'd rather take a pay cut than talk to more people at work. It's something that we heard, and we really believe that a lot of KNARFs are probably thinking, but actually haven't said out loud yet, which gets us to KNARF Buster number 4. Pop the hood on the social to self journey. And This is another great quote from our client and friend Doug McKinley at the bottom here, that you could probably use on KNARF with a lot of precision and success. Your full potential is no longer a luxury. It's a necessity to stay competitive. Our point here is a lot of folks are spending a lot of time on the books to the left, which are very powerful, awesome, insightful, and absolute must-reads in the space. We all know that. Engage, collaboration, open leadership. But for KNARF, they're not even ready to engage and open up to some of the business strategies around social media that are really outlined in some of these books. They're a little bit more, we put business reinvention here in the middle, but actually it starts to get to more personal reinvention and how I'm going to be successful leading my team or organization or brand or department or whatever with a new set of skills, with a new way of working, with inviting more people into the conversation, anti-KNARFy behavior, if you will. The book in the middle is a great one by Marshall Goldsmith, What Got You Here Won't Get You There, and he talks about the delusion of success. And, a lot of those tools don't serve us in this new world of openness and transparency and authenticity, two-way conversation, all that kind of stuff. It can, but if those successful traits start to become more on the shadow side or more of a detriment, they're going to be in your way. And I love the phrase that Marshall uses. He's not specifically talking to KNARF in his book, but for us it jumped out and it sounded like the perfect thing to talk to a KNARF about. Puncture your pretenses. I just love that phrase because I think that we all need to do that. Puncture our pretenses in all this work, because it's not only about us anymore, obviously. It's about employees, colleagues, customers, clients, who really ultimately make up the power of social media. Then you can kind of start to introduce Me 2.0 once KNARF has some awareness and, okay, I'm willing to go on this journey and open up and move to a more self-awareness and open a perspective. Me 2.0 is a great book just talking about, branding. There's a lot of, finding a new job type information in there as well. But it's really about personal reinvention and leveraging the tools from a very personal level. And KNARFs need to know that, and they need to understand not only strategically big picture how this is all going to help, with their business and the goals and all that kind of stuff, but it becomes very personal. If you have a KNARF who is willing to now move into this much more open space, the books on the right start to represent some of the human transformation that we believe really needs to occur to optimize, social media and all the people and teams around a KNARF. And so there's a book here called The Hidden Wholeness by Parker Palmer, and he really talks about a great thing, joining soul and role. And that's just another way of talking about transparency and openness, A, with yourself, and then B, what's necessarily clearly to be successful in the social media context, because those are some of the tenets and values of social media, as we all know. We won't get into that. B is a great light read. Find some very light, creative ways to read books and opportunities for human insights on the desks of KNARF. This is by an author, A.C. Ping, and he's got a couple of them, Be, Do, Faith, 3 different books. Very light, very good read about self-awareness and being more open and more collaborative. I'll use with this crowd the notion of being more spiritual in this pursuit and on this journey, and that's ultimately what it's all about, as we all know, because we love this stuff. KNARFs haven't quite got that yet, and we're not forcing that on KNARFs, but they need to get a sense of the value of co-creating with other people, as opposed to being, trapped in their own world and a lot of the traditional ways of managing and all that kind of stuff. So A.C. Ping, another fun read. And we just put this up for fun because we love it. If you can get a KNARF to purchase this book and read maybe a couple pages, congratulations. Write to us. We want to know how. This is getting into even Jungian psychology now. The title of this book is Swamplands of the Soul, and actually having a lot of fun going into the depths of, despite what people have told you and the roles that you've played, who are you really? And upon answering that, there's a lot of very humbling things there, and again, it's all part of the journey to being more open, more collaborative, more transparent with yourself, and then, of course, with other people. And again, these are some of the deeper, more personal ways through to more social media success that we found and we see in the people who are the most successful in this new world, leveraging all the great technology. So that's a big topic, and would love to hear more in some of the questions about where some of your bosses or some of your KNARFs might be on this journey. Closing out here, I don't know where to start. A fairly innocuous type KNARFy statement, but as I mentioned earlier, it can often be this excuse to stay stuck. And if it's something you hear in meeting after meeting and conference after conference and so on and so forth, it can get a little sickening. So we offer KNARF Buster number 5, Expose the Elephant. And again, based on what I was just talking about in KNARF Buster number 4, this is really a process of letting go. KNARFs are actually to the left of the first blue box, I want to learn. They're actually, to some degree, resistant to even doing that. What we're showing here is Frank's process of let go, and that really is all about, in the blue box, learn, and then engage, try, grow, and then optimize. And then you'll see down below, for us, the process is the same in terms of success with social media, and then ultimately success with yourself and self-discovery and opening up and all that good human transformative stuff. For us, they're one and the same. However, we know that not everybody, or let's do it this way, that everybody is on a different path with all of that self-awareness and all of that new learning. And so what you want to do is find out where your KNARF is on this journey, or not even, having put the first step, taken the first step on this journey, and work with where they are. I think some of the psychologists on the call would concur with that. I believe it's the old saw in the psychology business about start where the patient is, and don't force it. If you go to our site, shameless plug, you'll see a lot of different tactics, free content, and some different kinds of PowerPoint decks and so on. So really, from our perspective, honor where KNARFs are and work with them on this journey, and go a little bit deeper than just ROI. They may not even be ready for that. Go a little bit deeper, a little bit more personal, and get into sort of the human aspects. We think that's where the real power is. Because as Anna says from Huge down below, you probably already read this, the most effective marketing today is about relationships and interactions, and you are not behind, because as she closes here, all of this is always in beta. This is really what we're talking about, a huge business revolution. We actually have a deck up on SlideShare talking about the relationship revolution, and everybody approaches that differently. But if you can match some of the personal challenges that KNARFs have, or where they may be stuck or fearful with some of the business opportunities, again, we think that those are the real KNARF killers, and then you can get them on this journey and take the time to win them over, at their own pace. And sometimes that can really take off. And there's real, as there are in human self-discovery journeys, in the social media realm, there can be some really, really fast, exponentially powerful breakthroughs as well. So don't want to talk about this as, oh my God, this is going to take forever. Oh my God, human transformation, like KNARF can't even say that phrase. Not trying to suggest that, just trying to be aware, don't judge, work with them, find the right tools for where KNARFs are at their step in the process, at their place in the process, and take it from there. So that's the extent of our presentation today. Wanted to say thank you very much for taking the time and learning about KNARFs, and hopefully getting some tips and human insights on how to work through some of their barriers and resistances. Lots of ways to stay in touch with us. Really, if you just go to our website, you'll engage in, you'll see all the different social media channels that you can engage in, and we hope to continue the conversation for a long time after this presentation, and certainly look forward to some of the questions now for your free KNARF Buster 6-pack. So, thanks again, Will, Sal. Shall we open up to some questions?
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you so much, John. That was a really fun presentation and really interesting. And as someone who's worked at both startup companies and large corporations, I've seen KNARFs, various different flavors myself. I've seen KNARFs from before social media. They existed back then too. But thank you. I think a lot of those techniques that you call out are really important. I think sometimes it's tempting to just give up on KNARF, but I think you've inspired me at least to think about ways to talk with them. Of course, here at Awareness, we don't have a lot of KNARFs, being a social media company, but we still run into them from time to time. So what we'd like to do is we have a lot of KNARFy statements that people have suggested, and what we want to do is run through a couple just wrap-up slides, a little housekeeping, and then we want to kind of bounce some of these KNARFy statements off you, get your feedback about how you'd handle them, and then we'll pick the KNARFiest one and give and then offer up the prize to them. How's that
great.
Sound? Okay, great. I'm going to just make myself the presenter again for a second here, and we'll just go through a couple bits of housekeeping. So we hope that you guys, everyone who's on the call, enjoyed the presentation as much as we did, and that you learned a lot from it, and you got to meet John and all that stuff. We have these webinars probably once every 2 or 3 weeks, in addition to the demo webinars that we do. We bring in lots of interesting people like John. If you are interested in learning more about the webinars we do, there's a lot of different social ways you can join us. You can become like us on Facebook at the Awareness Webinars page. You can just search for that, or follow us on Twitter, which most of you I think are doing now. We have blogs written by some of our internal experts available at awarenessnetworks.com. Look for the community link. And we also have a social media marketing best practices page. That's also on Facebook. So we encourage you to join us and come to our future webinars. We will have our next external speaker webinar occurring on February 17th, and that's going to feature Ann Handley, the CCO of Marketing Profs, and CC Chapman, the founder of Digital Dads. That's just a Marketing Profs, not Market Profs. Sorry, that's my typo. But they'll be talking about content rules and basically how to create great content, and that ties into some of the wonderful content marketing topics that we've had from previous speakers. So we encourage you to go sign up now. So let's talk about some of these KNARFy statements. So, John, we're going to spend just a few minutes now bouncing. We've gotten probably 30 or 40 good KNARFy statements in the presentation. Yeah, and so Sal, why don't you bounce a couple of these off John and see what he thinks?
Okay. Hey, John, I got a couple good ones here that I'd like to go over. One that sort of caught my eye because I've experienced it, and probably a lot of people out there have experienced it. So one question is, I want to keep my work life separate from my personal life. So obviously, if you're doing social media, your name is going to be out there. You're going to be representative of the company. What would you say to someone who puts up that barrier?
Well, I mean, obviously the first question from our perspective is why. To me, that's a big discussion about why the separation. I mentioned the book about by Parker Palmer talking about, at a deeper level, joining soul and role. And for us, what starts to come up with that type of statement is that there's a disconnect. There's some kind of misalignment between the work and the personal. We're not all about revealing every personal, very private thing that we do in a personal life, in our business circles. But what we also talk about is authenticity is the new differentiator. And, clearly when we talk about a product commoditization and all the kinds of services that are out there, we are all searching for new and different ways to be distinctive and differentiated from the crowd. And truly, the people who make up the organization, the individuals who lead the brands and their passion for the work that they do and the products and services that they create can be that differentiator as it's manifested and shared through the different social channels. So that's our bigger question to the KNARF who puts that out there. And it raises for us a lot of other issues that might come up. And it's not that we end up in a place where it has to be one, but we just talk about to what degree of separation is the KNARF really looking for, and then actually manage that through the social media campaign.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. You know, if you're engaging in social media, you know, you shouldn't sort of try to put up those barriers. You shouldn't sort of say, okay, well, I want to engage, and we're going to put up these fail-safes and false users and you know, different procedures to keep that separation. But you guys rather just, you know, embrace the fact that, you know, there are synergies there, and that people are going to, you know, look at you as a brand spokesperson. One other good question I had here is sort of along the lines of yours, you know, how do I get started? Is just we don't have any Facebook friends. Why should I go on developing Facebook?
Well, you actually might not want to or need to, and it might be an inappropriate channel, right? I'm sure a lot of folks on the line here have seen Brian Solis's Conversation Prism. If they haven't, you know, check that out. I think that's about one of the most comprehensive, actually very beautiful representation of all the different social channels that are out there. And I think that one of the problems, actually, especially with KNARF, is that social media equals Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube. Obviously, those are just, you know, tips of the iceberg. And what we talk about is actually social media for us is bending, shaping, twisting the technology to meet our business needs. Now, I don't know what, Sal, was that Will or Sal? Sorry.
Yeah, that's Sal. Sorry.
Sal, sorry. If you know what industry or product or services person, what the context is, any of that? No.
No, sorry, I don't.
Yeah, so obviously Facebook has more. When I talk about my Frank business on my Facebook page, I get 0 comments. When I talk about the dogs or something I'm doing on Saturday or life or whatever, boom, right? So I think Facebook does definitely play to more consumer brands and more human interactions, more sort of universally social type products and services. If it's more in a B2B area, that can work, don't get me wrong. Perhaps it's the wrong channel. So have a frank conversation about the right social media channels and actually sometimes bringing the statement to a KNARF that we're not going to do Facebook for these reasons could sometimes represent the largest breakthrough of all. And then that creates an opening to say, here's what we do propose. Here are the channels we do think about. Here's where we would like to go.
Okay. I'm going to try to get through as many of these as possible. So here's one. Just social media is just a fad. It won't go anywhere. How would you sort of respond to that?
Well, you know, I would talk about, this isn't really a technology discussion. This is really a discussion about business reinvention. And what that is really all about is we can talk about globalization. We can talk about a little bit about technology. We can talk about new generations, millennials especially, coming on. We can talk about, you know, a lot of different mega trends in the world today. And at the bottom of all of that really is the notion of getting work done with less resources, less time, and in many cases less people. And so, you know, hey, Mr. or Ms. KNARF, are you interested in doing some of that? Usually we can get people nodding, and then that, again, represents an opening to talk about some of the technology that can help with that. And that isn't a fad. That's the new way of doing business. And there's tons of books out there that just talk about the economic pressures on all of us to work differently. And those are some of the megatrends that impact that.
Okay. You know, speaking of megatrends, I know that you've put forward a couple different books, which is great. Just wondering if there's any favorite statistic or chart or anything like that, just sort of like a really quick summary rather than giving someone a book that says, social media is not a fad because of this. Here's how many Facebook users there are in the world, or something, some resource, a quick resource that you would use in that situation.
Well, what we do in December and obviously January of every year is just jump online and go to places like, Altimeter, clearly, people who are summarizing all those statistics. Facebook obviously has a statistics page. Technorati is a place, and we haven't found any one source that summarizes all of that, but you can clearly search for, 2010 social media statistics or 2011 forecasts and create a compilation of those statistics. So they're out there without a doubt. But I also want to add here that for KNARF, the raw data and statistics aren't really what we've seen move them forward. It has to get a little bit more personal, and it has to get a little bit more selfish, if you will, to meet some of the pressures or issues that they're facing as an individual within the organization. And if you can get to that deeper level with some of the KNARF busting techniques we shared today, that's where we see some movement and dislodging. And okay, let's roll with that. So it's for us a little bit more personal, in addition to obviously a mix of some quantitative data as well in some of those sources. Hope that helps.
Yeah, definitely. And so I think we have time for one more. So this is from Linda, and we've chosen this one as our top, KNARF statement, KNARF statement, because it does come up so much, and it's a very simple statement, but sort of speaks to a couple barriers that someone's putting up here. Basically, I'm 42 years old. I don't do Facebook. That comes up a lot. That someone who doesn't engage in these things, and they feel like that ship has passed them by. They're not interested in moving forward. What would you say to that?
Well, I would agree with the KNARF and say it's not social media. Our future success, the performance of this organization is not about Facebook. Let's kick that off the table. Let's talk about what we're trying to accomplish as an organization, as a business, as a brand, product, service, as a culture, whatever it is. And let's outline some strategies. Let's get some business imperatives. What do we have to accomplish in the next 3 months, this quarter? What about 6 years? Where do we want to be in 12 months, I should say. And then get that down and then leave the meeting. Then come back and present a lot of different ideas. Again, we talked about offline ideas as KNARF Buster number 1. Have some of those in the mix and say, some of those offline ideas can be juiced by some of this new technology. We're not going to use Facebook. That doesn't really apply. But here are some other new ones. Have you heard about? Have you tried? Let's check this out. And start to integrate, blend, and tie to real business imperatives that are co-created with that KNARF together.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. We have a ton more, KNARF statements. We will,
cool.
We'll try to get on Twitter and answer as many of those as possible after the webinar. But I think that we're running a little short on time, so I think we're gonna end it now with that.
Okay, and if I may just briefly, what I think we can do is put up a discussion on Frank's LinkedIn group about KNARF statements and ways to overcome them. And so I just invite people to do that. Click through to our site, and then to our we'll post it on our blog to continue the conversation, perhaps in the LinkedIn setting, so we can get to some of these with a little more detail for everybody.
All right. Well, that sounds great. Everyone knows that they can go to areyoufrank.com and to do that, and we'll be posting a recording of this presentation afterwards if you want to review that. I want to thank you, John, for taking on all those great KNARF statements and knocking them down and giving us an overview of all these kind of techniques. I want to thank all of our attendees. We had a pretty good crowd today. Some great KNARF statements and from the audience, which is fun to mix it up from our usual kind of technical questions that we get from people. And I think that's about it. So, John, if there isn't anything else, I think we can say goodbye to everybody.
All right. Thank you, Will. Thank you, Sal. Thank you for everybody for attending and submitting your KNARF statements. It sure helps us a ton. Appreciate the opportunity to share more about Frank. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you at the next one.